It's June 19th, 2017, and as you step onto the grounds at Le Bourget Airport, where the Paris Air Show is being held, excitement is in the air. Airline and industry executives are about, getting ready to announce big deals, and everyone is wondering whether Boeing or Airbus would announce something new. But before being able to think about that question for any longer, you suddenly see a parked A380 with immediately eye-catching blue wingtips that read A380 Plus. What you have just stumbled upon is Airbus's brand new concept for their A380s. The A380 Plus would add a handful of economy seats, and with the help of these marvelous wingtips, flights would be a bit more fuel efficient. Airbus really thought that they had cracked the code, and they kept on boasting how cost efficient the A380 Plus would be per seat. This would surely revitalize the program after sales had unexpectedly begun to sharply fall. But of course, that is not what happened. See, Airbus had been drinking its own Kool-Aid. The problem their A380 program was facing wasn't per seat cost at all. In fact, the A380 was already cheaper to operate on a per seat basis compared to the very efficient Boeing 747-8. Rather, it was simply a problem of size. On average, a typical 3-class seating arrangement on an A380 meant that there were over 530 seats to be filled. So when Airbus announced this A380 Plus, without even consulting any airlines, not even Emirates was interested in the proposed upgrade. Even during the 2017 through 2019 heyday of airlines being incredibly busy and growing, A380 airlines were happy when they managed to fill 80% of the seats. Part of the problem was that Airbus had misjudged the evolution of the airline industry. Being hyper-focused and located around London, Paris, and Frankfurt, they thought that airports would soon become so busy that it would only make sense for airlines to fly in the biggest planes they could, since they would have so few time slots available to use. It turns out that being surrounded by the world's densest and busiest airports is not always the best for having a global perspective. To make matters worse, Airbus wasn't as big as they are today, and still felt like they had something to prove against the global behemoth that was Boeing. And Boeing, most known for its iconic 747, was working on updating their double-decker in the early 2000s, and Airbus saw this as a perfect opportunity to prove itself to the world. What if they made a clean sheet design of a bigger, better double-decker? So that is exactly what Airbus did, despite the extremely questionable business case. What I find even more interesting though is that Airbus really did get it wrong, because the A380 that we all know and love today was actually the smallest version of what Airbus had been planning. See, what British Airways and Emirates fly today is technically called the Airbus A380-800, and those aren't just random numbers after the dash. There was supposed to be a stretched variant, the A380-900, with there being rumors that Airbus thought that they'd eventually make an A380-1000. Obviously, none of this came to fruition, as even the small -800 struggled its entire life to get orders, with Malaysia Airlines trying to sell theirs just after 3 years of having them, and mega carriers like Air France and China Southern retiring their A380s entirely in 2022. Luckily for Airbus, they ended up finding their strong suit in re-engineering their narrow bodies, as Boeing not only failed to replace the 757, but also couldn't make reliable 737 Maxes, not to mention basically forcing Bombardier to sell their then CS program to Airbus for pennies on the dollar. So while slapping on some wingtips didn't exactly work out for Airbus's A380s, the company is doing just fine. Thank you so much to those who watched this video all the way to the end, and only because you've done so, I do recommend subscribing to the channel, where we discuss all things commercial aviation.